Furcation involvement is a bacterial invasion leading to bone resorption and loss of periodontal support between the root anatomy region. So the prevalence of this is as expected. The mandibular first molar usually are the commonest because the fact that they usually appear first in the mouth, so they usually spend longer in the mouth than any other tooth. And two, is because of their root divergence. And most important, as we shall see, the distance of the root trunk or the length of the root trunk. Then the maxillary premolars are the least common. Do we know why? Have you ever extracted a maxillary premolar? Huh? You realize that it has a very long trunk and very small root cones. And furcation is not necessarily how much chemical attachment loss has happened, but how much exposure of the furcation has literally happened. Are you getting my argument? Okay. And the number of furcation involvement increases with age because you know that there's a lot of age changes associated with, there are many age changes associated to teeth wear and periodontal support wear. So the more you brush, the more you chew fibrous food, the more you brush all those things, you end up getting exposure or bone resorption. And of course, physiological age changes in bone remodeling and wearing over or outweighing position. The etiology of these furcations are basically 5. The local factors, one of which is the trunk length, root morphology, root length, interradicular dimension, anatomy of the furcation, local or developmental anomalies, and then dental caries if they go to that extent, pulpal depth, and then finally periodontal disease. When we talk about the root trunk, the whole aspect of the root from the CEG downwards is what we call a root complex. And the root trunk is the undivided part of the root. Then the root cones are the individual representations or representatives of the root. So sometimes the exposure of the furcation is not necessarily a measure of how much chemical attachment loss you've had, but how short or long the trunk is. For example, if you find a tooth with 2 millimeters of the trunk, any simple insult might easily expose that furcation. But that tooth has a better prognosis because the root cones are usually longer. But when you come to a tooth, look at this tooth. It has almost twice the amount of root trunk than the root cones. So by the time this furcation is exposed, you've really had a lot of destruction around that tooth. So the prognosis of such a tooth would be really poor as compared to this one, which has a root trunk of about 1/3 compared to the height of the cones. Then furcation entrance. Most of us assume we are really doing scaling and root blending, but until you're challenged with scaling of the furcation, you really don't know what you're doing. Because the ultrasonic instruments and some of the hand instruments, when you look at the tip diameter and the diameter of the fornix or the furcation entrance, you realize that that instrument cannot enter. And this is the instrument you're using to clean that area. So just like imagine if someone with 17 centimeters in diameter is supposed to be forced into a door of 5 centimeters, they won't pass. So most of the times it is very, very challenging to clean the furcation if you relate the furcation entrance diameter with the blade, with the tip of the blade of the normal curex. I hope we are still together up to there. Then root concavities. Remember, until you open up or until you do open flap debridement, what you're doing is closed or blind procedure. So the tactile sensation depends on how accurate you are on ascertaining the nature and the curvatures within the root surfaces. So you may end up, instead of planing the root surfaces and moving the debris into the vacation, you might end up indenting the roots and making it even more plaque retentive. So the root concavities have a lot to play in terms of the progression and management of these vacations. And research has shown that almost 100% mesoroots of mandibular molars are curved, and 99% of the distal roots are curved. The least curved are the palatal roots of the maxillary molars. So if the vacation was on the palatal surface of distopalatal or mesopalatal surface, it is easy to clean as compared to a vacation of maybe between the mesial and the distal roots of the lower mandibular molar. Then cervical enamel pearls. This, I'm sure some of you have come across teeth that have these pearls or these enamel projections. You've come across some of them, or you've seen them in pictures. These are plaque retentive. They are irritants in that area. They create anidus for the formation of the plaque and the multiplication of the disease. It is more challenging for you to root plane an area which already has an obstacle. So teeth that have such issues, like those with palatogingival grooves or those with extra enamel material within or around the cervical area, usually present challenges in treatment and in instrumentation, especially if you're using hand instruments or even when you're using ultrasonic instruments. Another thing that we should also appreciate is the degree of root separation. This has an implication on the treatment option you're going to take, and also on if you lose bone, regeneration, how possible regeneration is. So the interradicular dimension we are talking about is the distance between the two roots. For example, if we take it at mid-root, this distance is what we are talking about. So if you have option A, B, C, D, which of these ones would be easier for you to root plane using a Gris's curate? So, after knowing a little bit of the challenges or the basic anatomy around the anatomy or structure of the vacation area, now we should know how we should diagnose this. There are basically two common and available methods of vacation diagnosis. One is the clinical, and two is the radiological. Clinical is as simple as using a probe. Who knows the probe we use for vacation probing? Neber's probe. Lule, you know how Neber's probe looks like? Did you bother to book about it after knowing that you're going to do vacation?
Which is it?
Neber's probe, N-A-B-E-R.
I've forgotten what it looks like.
Emma, have you heard of Pickles Explorer? Okay. So, just like the vacation is curved, or it has a different anatomical shape, we cannot use a straight probe to probe a vacation very well. So there is what we call a Neber's probe, and when you look at them, they are curved in a C-shape, like a sickle scalar in that shape. One time when we are doing a hands-on, I'll show you how it looks like. That is aimed at probing, entering the vacation area, and you try. Most importantly, it should be a probe, not an explorer. You don't want to cause harm to the soft tissue, but at the same time, you want to enter and see how far this probe can go, because it will give us a direction in terms of the depth of the vacation, but it will also help us classify how much destruction has happened, so that we can know whether we are dealing with a class 1 vacation or a grade 4 vacation. So the hand has the tactile ability to tell us much of this information. And the other obvious one is the radiograph. I've always emphasized that when you take a patient's radiograph, you harness as much information as you can from it. For example, in this radiograph, we can see some shapes of bone loss. Some are in between the roots, some are on one surface. As when you look at the bone density, you can see that the cortical bone here is more opaque or dense than in the area near the furcation, but it's not a through and through. I don't know whether you can see that with me. When you compare the tooth where the cursor is, and also compare the tooth where the new cursor is, you can see that here you've lost almost all the bone for that particular region, right? But in the first one, you can see that there is some aspect of bone on the other side. So we could say that bone has either undergone demineralization or part of the bone has been eaten. So when it comes to classification, if you probe this furcation here, you may not go through to the opposite side. Yet with this one, you're most likely going to go through. And for A here, it is evidently clear that you will go through. So the radiograph can tell you this, but having done a clinical assessment supported by this radiograph, it will become automatic for you to make your clinical diagnosis. So when it comes to furcation probing, you have to know which side to probe. It's not a matter of probing the buccal surface, which is easier for you to see, and then you say that the patient has no furcation. And when you take the OPG or whichever X-ray, you find there is furcation. So it's always important to know the anatomy of the tooth. The upper tooth, it has roots like this, right? So when you're probing, if you probe here, you'll hit the palatal root, right? If you probe here, you'll hit the buccal root. If you probe here, you're most likely going to hit the mesial root. So the angulation of your probe is important. Sometimes it might be a through and through if you add the lingual furcation to the buccal furcation probing depth. Are you understanding my argument? Are you understanding my argument? Yeah. So because there could be calculus within the furcation area, you may not be in position to probe through and through. But when you look at the lingual furcation measurement and the distal the buccal furcation measurement, adding those two is equivalent to the distance of that space. So it then it qualifies as a grade 3 rather than a grade 2. So understand the anatomy of the root, understand the anatomy of the tooth, and then probe accordingly. Just don't place a probe where you know it is going to hit a roof. Otherwise, you're going to come up with wrong measurements. So if Dr. Tom was here, he would have said that the lower picture is better than the upper one. But to me, eyes see what they know. Even you give this image to anyone else, they will see nothing because probably they are not yet exposed. What you are seeing up in the upper section is the normal intraoral pediatric X-ray, and in the lower section, Lule, what do you think this is? You work with Jubilee, it has this.
That's 3D.
3D, what is the true name? 3D is just a political name. CBCT, cone beam computer tomography. In that it's giving us a section. If you look at, if we can concentrate around here, you can see 3 GP points, right? And it corresponds well with the anatomy of the lower tooth. Having 2 mesial canals, in 2 canals in the mesial root and 1 canal in the distal root, right? Is that okay? So can we ascertain that these 2 roots belong to one tooth? Yes or no? Oh, yes, let me say that. But when you look at where the arrow is pointing, we are seeing there is a radiolucence. You understand? But it is only on the lingual surface. The buccal plate is still intact. This is totally different from what we are seeing between these 2 teeth, where there is probably an extraction socket. You understand? So 3D can, to a very precise level, give you the classification of furcation involvement using the Glickman's classification, not the Turner and Fletcher, because this one is just looking at whether the probe goes through and to what extent. So if you use a 3D, you can literally see that there is bone loss in between, but it's not crossing through. But when I'm using this one is just giving me a plain view. It is showing that there is reduced density of bone within that furcation. It could mean that there is a very thin cortical plate it could mean that there is both cortical plates are gone. It could mean that there's even recession associated with it. You understand? But this one can exactly tell us that at least you have the buccal plate, so most likely to a 95% accuracy, you can say this is a grade 2 furcation involvement of this model. Is that okay? So make use of these radiological aids if you have them. But without 3D, you can still make a reasonable diagnosis. So let us come to the classification. The commonest we know is Glickman's classification, which is based on how much of the probe enters, one being just an incipient. If you can see the phonics of the entrance, or the phonics, or the dome, or just that the apex of the bifurcation, if you can see that or probe it slightly, then we can say that it's an incipient or a grade 1 furcation. We call it a grade 2 if a probe can enter reasonable millimeters, 2, 3, 4, depending on how huge the tooth is, but it is not crossing over because of the presence of the buccal plate still intact. Then we grade it 3 if the probe can go through and through, but it is not clinically feasible, so it's still basing on your tactile sensation. But if then recession happens and clinically you can see this tunnel, then we call it a grade 4. And their management is easier as you go up. The more you get to grade 4, the more complicated the management is. And that has been elucidated again along the sides here. Grade 1, rather grade 2, the probe part of the bone has been eaten. I hope you can see this. Oh, it has been blocked. But you can see it there, right? So you can see that the gray area is the defect in bone. We still have reasonable bone in the furcation area. Grade 2, almost, if not all, the bone has been eaten out. Sorry, this is early grade 2, this is late grade 2. Grade 3 is when you can probe through and through. And grade 4 is when there is recession associated with this such that you can clean. So that further explains some of what I've been saying. Since we have to upload this information, I put some notes for those who may not have attended this CPD. So, what are the objectives of the treatment? There are basically 3 or 4 objectives we are targeting in this treatment. 1, we have to eliminate the microbiological plaque from the exposed surface of the root complex. That is the most important. Then we need sometimes, or most of the times, to re-establish the anatomy of the affected surfaces. All of you know how a rough surface is. If a root is exposed, most of the time it's very rough, and any rough surface attracts accumulation of dirt easier. And if that happens, you will clean the furcation. Within a few weeks, it will be back. And that's the difference between scaling and polishing, and then scaling and root planing. Planing means to smoothen. You want to leave this root smooth such that if plaque wanted to accumulate on that root, it will just slide down, just like plaque rarely accumulates on a clean enamel surface. Is that okay? So you also want to seal any furcation canal if possible, and also eliminate the furcation if possible. So with those objectives, we have 3 main strategies into which we divide our treatment outcomes or objectives. According to Kalkoff and Reinhardt in 1988, they came up with 3 strategies. One of them was to maintain the existing furcation. It is shallow, it is cleansable, so don't worry about it. Clean it, just scale and root plane, give oral hygiene education, make sure that the patient can regularly clean the area. Then increasing access to furcation. Sometimes if the furcation is difficult for the patient to push a brush there, you can do procedures that can make it easy to clean that furcation, either using interdental brushes, or flossing threads, or tapered flosses, or water jets, or any cleaning aid that can access that place. One of them would be to do gingivectomy, and you apically reposition the flap so that the furcation area is clear of the normal it is very clear, and therefore a normal brush can easily penetrate, or the incidental brushes can easily penetrate that area. The second is odontoplasty or furcation plasty, meaning that you reshape the furcation, you remove all the ledges, all the rough surfaces, so that it becomes very easy for the brush or whichever cleaning aid you're using to enter and remove whichever dirt could have held itself inside there. And osteoplasty, osteectomy, is reshaping bone to make sure that there are no bone flakes or ledges that might be hazardous or that can be more plaque retentive in that area. But the best options of or strategies of all this is to try and eliminate the furcation, because that is a very challenging area to clean, both to the dentists and to the patients. So the ways that we can eliminate the furcation, one is GTR, regrow the area if there are facilities to regrow the area. Two, bicuspidize the tooth. If it's a molar, make it 2 teeth, 2 premolars. 3, amputate the root. If you cut off one root, do you still have a furcation? We say that furcation is either buy or try. If you have a lower molar with the 2 roots and you cut off one root, do you still have a furcation? Hemisect the tooth. Divide it into 2 halves and treat those two halves as individual teeth and crown them. Or remove the tooth if it comes to that level. So, the non-surgical, I don't have to tell much about it. You can either do the normal scaling and root planing, emphasize oral hygiene education. If necessary, you may involve in a little bit of antimicrobial through use of chips, perio chips, tetracycline spheres, monocycline spheres, fibers, all those things to locally administer a local medicament. Then you could attempt to do an open flap debridement, where you have now a better visibility of the area you're dealing with. The scaler, whether using ultrasonic or curettes, you'll have a better vision of what you're doing. In most cases, even this can reduce a grade 2 furcation to 0, as long as the vision allows you to clear out all the dirt that is hidden behind that furcation. But the challenge, as you remember from our beginning, is that sometimes the furcation entrance is smaller than the instruments we are using. So in such a case, you may augment it with a little bit of reshaping. Some of you have had what we call tunneling, if it is to go through, but in this particular case, you just reshape to allow either the deposition of bone or to allow better adaptation back of the flap that you have raised. GTR. The difference between open flap debridement and GTR is just the placement of a material that is going to facilitate bone deposition or regeneration of the periodontal tissues. If you place bone and you don't protect it, soft tissues are going to grow into that bone, and you're going to have what we call a fibro-osseous growth. Yet we want osseous growth, we want bone. So the concept of GTR, or guided tissue regeneration, you want to guide a particular tissue to populate an area of a defect. If you want collagen, you separate away bone. If you want bone, you separate away collagen. If you want collagen, you separate away epithelium. Because epithelium, collagen tissue, and bone have different growth rates. Epithelium repopulates just within a day or 2. That's why you will have your sulcus reestablished after a week of scaling and root planing. And that's why one of the healing outcomes of scaling and root planing is long junctional epithelium, because it grows faster than collagen tissue can grow towards it. So the difference here is you place a membrane to isolate or to guide a particular line of tissue to repopulate the defect you're having. In this particular case, we did a 6-point chart and realized that we had a grade 2 furcation in one of the molars. Radiograph confirmed it. So we went ahead to do an open flap. I'm sorry for some of these photos, they are really old, but they still carry the meaning. We did an open flap and grafted the area, and a few months later, the furcation was clinically and radiologically blocked off, as you can see in the photograph after healing. This is another case. This I did here with Dr. Dunstan. This was a 52-year-old Mzungu who came with a recurrent abscess around here. So we chose to open up and make the definitive treatment plan on opening up. So when we opened up, we found a very deep furcation, deep in terms of buccolingual and distal, but we still had the lingual plate intact. So what we did, we just cleaned it out very well, and then we placed bone, then we placed a membrane, we positioned the membrane in relation to the flap so that we are sure the flap can cover it very well, and then finally closed it up. The patient went for a vacation. When she comes back, we shall see the progress, and then maybe the next presentation we'll report on the progress. Grade 3 options. When you have a grade 3, grafting becomes a little challenging because the bone that populates the defect is not the artificial bone we put there. The artificial bone we put there is just a space maintained. The source of the bone is the natural patient. So we create a nidus, or we create a scaffold into which the fibroblasts, the osteoblasts can migrate and then start laying down osteoid. And then later the osteoid is mineralized to get the bone that we want. So if you don't have the source of the cells, even if you put this bone graft there, it will remain there for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It will resolve, but when you take an X-ray, you will still have the what? The defect. So when you look at the sources of bone in this particular case, we want bone to come from the floor, from all the walls. You understand? The reason a socket and an extraction socket heals faster without even grafting is because bone is coming, osteoblasts are coming from all the directions. But in this particular case, when you have a grade 3, we have only bone on the floor. Remember, left and right is roots, right? Lingual buccal, gone. So what we have is the floor. It cannot sustain the growth of that bone to cover up the whole defect. So you try GTR in a grade 3, you're having a good recipe for disaster. So in such case, we apply options that may give us something workable, like osseous surgery, furcation plasty, or what we call tunneling to make it easier to clean. We can do bicuspidization, where you divide the tooth into two, turn it into bicuspids, or you can do root amputation. This is what we are calling bicuspidization. This was one tooth, one tooth. Or let's use this one. This was one tooth. So you divide, get rid of the furcation, crown this tooth on its own, crown this tooth on its own. Someone gets 4 premolars and 2 molars instead of 3 molars and 2 premolars. But the teeth are functional and there's no furcation to worry about. This is another situation. Patient comes, the whole mesial root is knocked off, no bone whatsoever. Even radiograph confirms that. As you can see here, the whole root is floating in a granuloma around it. So what do you do? Pardon? Okay. There is a way out of it. Extraction. What options do we have? Pardon? Root resection. Another option. Hemisection. Another option. Okay. Extract the tooth. Yes, of course the easiest way out should come out here. So, in this particular case, what I did was to do endo on the root I wanted to save. Then we did root amputation. You can see after attempting scaling and root pulling, you can see how clean this root is up here, but you see Caliculus is still up to the apex of the root. And then we had to cut out this root and just leave it as that. Amputation. Yes, you're lame, but you can walk. The other alternative is hemisection, in which case you cut out one of the parts. The other alternative would have done for this would have been a hemisection if we had wanted. But the challenge of a hemisection is leaving redundant space here. That tooth is not well balanced. But when you do an amputation and you seal off this tooth well, you can crown it, since it still has a mesial and distal contact, it is well cushioned. You understand? As compared to a hemisection, in which case you're going to remove the whole of this part which is hanging. So the contact between this and this is lost. And if you're going to put a crown on this tooth, you're going to make a very ugly, if not, I don't know, the pontic that is going to result out of this work, if you want to maintain the distal contact, is going to be very, very political. So that's where amputation might win a hemisection. Tunneling is as simple as this. What we call to apically reposition the flap. If the furcation is being covered by the flap, it means that even normal brushing is impossible. But when you raise that flap and you position it low to almost the level of the furcation, means that when healing occurs, you will have the furcations exposed. A little bit ugly, but manageable in terms of oral hygiene practices, as compared to having bacteria and plaque hiding behind these furcations all the time. Is that understandable? And of course, your most favorable outcome. You want, if all those fail, you do what all of us do, you extract the tooth. So, the essence of this presentation before I go to the factors and the rest is, don't wait for the condition to be tough. Don't refer grade 3 mobile teeth for me to manage. I'm going to just extract. This is work you can do in your clinics. Refer procedures or treatments that can be salvaged. Otherwise, if you refer to me at a grade 4 with grade 2 mobility or grade 3 mobility over maltreated tooth, literally telling me this was a very difficult extraction for me, please do this extraction. It will be expensive for the patient and it will be money out of your surgery. But if you look at the OPG and you see a spot furcation, or you see a grade 2 furcation, or a grade 3 furcation, but when the roots are still well anchored in bone, then those are the cases we can work together and improve the oral health, the quality of oral health of that patient. But send grade 3 mobility and you want me to, by, I don't know whose grace, to bring back those gums or bring back that bone, I think you're just referring your money to me, but not the patient. So, what are some of the patient factors that we may consider when we are discussing the treatment outcomes, the prognosis, and the type of treatment we want to give? Oral hygiene compliance is very important. None of these treatments will survive if the patient is not self-motivated to practice oral hygiene. 2, the stress levels, those ones, you can't say much about them because stress is like diabetes. It touches every system in the body and it's a topic on its own. Intraoral accessibility. Don't attempt to do GTR on a wisdom tooth which is partially erupted. Literally you won't get there. Access is one principle surgery appreciates. If you can't access a place, literally you cannot do a procedure there. Then uncontrolled systemic health, especially diabetes. The American Dental Association has put periodontitis to be the 60th, diabetes to be the periodontitis to be the 60th complication of the DM. And a lot of research, part of which I was involved, has shown that periodontal disease and DM is a double-bladed sword. Perio can make sugar worse, sugar can make perio worse. So controlling one enhances or improves the other. So if you have uncontrolled diabetes, rest assured your period treatment is going to fail. Same as smoking, and history, a little bit of history of the response on healing is also important to know whether this flap will survive or not. And what are the measures of success in this? One, has function been restored? Much of the time people with vacation will report deep-seated pain somewhere. Two, ease of care. Can the patient do self or care easily, or you've made it more complex? Aesthetics, have you improved the aesthetics or you've made them worse? Comfort, health, and value for money. Thank you.